From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
I'm Mary Jane Deeb, Chief of the Division, and I'm delighted to see you all today for a very interesting program on the Ethiopian Academy of Sciences. And it will be presented by Dr. Masresha Fetene, the Executive Director of the Academy. As most of you already know, our division is made up of three sections: the African, the Near Eastern, and the Hebraic sections. And we are responsible for materials from 78 different countries in the Near East, Central Asia, the Caucasus, as well as from the entire continent of Africa, North and Sub-Sahara. Our Hebraic and Judaica collections come from all over the world, and Ethiopia is part of the Hebraic section. We also serve these materials to patrons here in our reading room and organize programs, exhibits, conferences, and other activities that highlight these collections and that inform our patrons about the countries and the cultures these publications come from. And we currently have an exhibit on 1,000 Years of the Persian Book. It's on the same floor on the other side, and I would encourage you all to go and see it. Our Persian specialist, Hiradi Navari, has given curated tours. So if you're interested in doing that, please let me know, or just go ahead. And I very much would like to do an exhibit on the African book as well that would bring in Ethiopia. And we were just talking here about such a possibility. However, we need to raise money for that. But think about it as you go and visit our exhibits, that this is something that we have in the pipeline and would like to see it materialize. So today, this program has been organized by our own specialist for Ethiopia and Eritrea, Fentahun Tirune, who is a scholar and a very much sought after speaker as well, and who has invited Professor Fetene to come and talk to us. And he will introduce Professor Fetene. So Fentahun Tirune.
Thank you, Mary Jane. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's event. Today we have a prominent scholar from Ethiopia, executive member, director of the Ethiopian Academy of Sciences, who came to Washington, D.C. To participate in the African Leadership Summit. There will be a question and answer at the end of his presentation, and I would like to mention that this event is being videotaped for subsequent broadcast on the library's webcast and other media. There will be a formal question and answer period after the lecture in which the audience is encouraged to ask questions and offer comments. But please be advised that your voice and image may be recorded and later broadcast as part of this event. By participating in the question and answer period, you are consenting to the library's possible reproduction and transmission of your remarks. I now will introduce our speaker of today, Professor Masresha Fetene. Dr. Masresha Fetene is a professor of plant ecophysiology at Addis Ababa University. He obtained his BSc in 1982 and his MSc in 1985 in biology from the Addis Ababa University, and his PhD in plant ecophysiology from the University of Darmstadt, Germany, in 1990. Currently, he is executive director of the Ethiopian Academy of Sciences. In the past, he has served at the Addis Ababa University in various capacities as Vice President for Research and Graduate Studies, Head of Department of Biology, Associate Dean for Research and Graduate Studies, and Director of Addis Ababa University Press. He was also the Editor-in-Chief of SINET, Ethiopian Journal of Science. He has initiated several international and regional partnerships in teaching and has led and conducted many research projects with collaborators from East Africa countries and Europe. He has published extensively in peer-reviewed journals in the area of plant ecophysiology. He is a recipient of several research awards and fellowships, including the UNESCO ICRO Research Award and the Alexander von Humboldt Fellowship. Professor Masresha Fetene is a founding and active member of many professional associations, both national and international. He spearheaded the initiative for the establishment of the Ethiopian Academy of Sciences. Please welcome Professor Fetene Masresha.
Thank you very much for this generous introduction. I would like to say that I'm extremely honored to speak in this in the Library of Congress, and I would like to thank Fantahan in the Library of Congress, African and Middle East region for giving me this opportunity. I would like to introduce the Ethiopian Academy of Sciences. This is an institution that was established a few years ago, for which we have been working for several years, but was realized only recently. I'm sure you know that the objectives of science academies is to support and enhance. I'm sure you know that the objective of science academies all over the world is to support and enhance the advancement of science and scholarship. Science has grown all over the world through the support of science academies, and they have been the springboard of new advances in science. We could mention several academies, but the oldest one of the oldest ones, the Royal Society, was established in 1660 by just 12 scholars with the motto Nullius in Verba, which means do not take anything for granted. That means experiment and then verify. The youngest of all academies is the Ethiopian Academy of Sciences. The International Academy panel has 104 member academies, and the Ethiopian Academy of Sciences was registered as its okay. Very good. So the Ethiopian Academy of Sciences was registered as its 104th member just last year. So it is the youngest of all academies. Some history. The idea of establishing a science academy in Ethiopia was first suggested by Dr. Aklilu Lemma of the Lemma toxin fame, who introduced mollusk studies by observing local people, what they do with indod, a plant that's found in northern Ethiopia. This was in the early 70s. Dr. Aklilu came up with the idea of establishing a science academy, but the government then did not take his advice. The military junta that came following the last emperor actually used his ideas to establish the Ethiopian Science and Technology Commission. So the idea of establishing a science academy was forgotten. This is Aklilu Lemma. The first discussions to establish an Academy of Sciences recently was initiated in 2007 through email group discussions. And through these email group discussions, we agreed that it is important to establish an academy that would foster the development of science in Ethiopia and to enhance the growth of culture of science. From these email discussions, we formed an ad hoc committee which should work on a national conference. And the task of the national conference was to deliberate on the importance of establishing the academy and how it should be established. The national conference, the ad hoc committee for the national conference was made up of several presidents of individual professional associations, which you can see here. The ad hoc committee organized the national conference, and from this national conference, an AAS launching board was established in 2008. The task of the launching board was to draft the statutes of the academy and also draft the membership criteria and select the founding fellows. So in 2010 March, the academy was established by 49 prominent scholars you see here. And AS was officially launched on April 10, 2010 at the Africa Hall, and this is the gathering at the African Hall when AS was launched. Now, because of the work that we did to convince government officials on the importance of an academy, we were granted an Act of Parliament on March 1, 2003, so a proclamation which also granted us some subvention, government subvention. And the academy was reenacted in 2013, as you can see here. Now, these are a few photographs of the re-establishment of the academy. What you see here is Professor Radha Teklaimanot, the chairman of the ad hoc committee, holding the statutes of the academy written in Brahna. Brahna is the goat skin used for traditional literature, Giz literature. And what you see are here people signing the declarations. Now, the membership criteria we have is of three types: regular membership, these are fellows, and associate fellows. The difference between associate fellows and regular fellows is just because regular fellows are only chosen for offices, while associate fellows are not, because they need to be resident in Ethiopia. And we have honorary members, people who contribute significantly to the development of the academy, even though they may not be scholars. Membership is by nomination and also by application, which is rarely practiced. And the criteria for fellowship is strictly merit-based. The research and publication of the individuals, their scholarship is the first important criteria that is seen. And the contribution of the individuals to institutional building is also important. We also consider the international stature of the individuals and also their contribution to knowledge or development or scholarship outside their area of specialization. So these four criteria are the criteria that we used to elect the first founding fellows. Now we have about 137 fellows, of which 101 are regular fellows, 35 are associate fellows, and 1 honorary fellow. Out of these, three sadly were deceased in the last 2 years. Our vision is to see a scientifically literate society in Ethiopia where people make informed choices and decisions about their day-to-day life. And the mission is to foster scientific culture and innovation and advance the knowledge of the sciences, including indigenous knowledge. As you know, Ethiopia has a great wealth of indigenous knowledge, and it is a mission of the Ethiopian Academy of Sciences to bring this knowledge into the surface and also to teach the young about our heritage. When we say the sciences, the scope is that we concentrate more on the methodology, on the way knowledge is acquired, not on the science per se. So the Ethiopian Academy of Sciences has natural sciences, mathematics, health sciences, agricultural sciences, engineering, technology, the humanities, arts, and even letters. So it encompasses all the sectors of knowledge. So what do we intend to do? That is the objectives. Our objective is to support and promote scientific research and research in Ethiopia. This is the primary objective of the Academy. We want to enhance problem-solving technologies and knowledge of the applied sciences. And also, we want to advise the government on issues related to science, and in particular to the issue of and relevance of science education. This is very critical to us because science education is a cornerstone for research, and we would like to influence how science is taught in our schools and how science is passed on. We also organize public forums and appropriate programs to disseminate knowledge, and we want to strengthen interaction of Ethiopian scientists, scholars among themselves and with their counterparts outside. These are more or less the objectives we have. And the activities are presenting a platform for discussion and dialogue to scientists, scholars, and creating a network with institutions among having the common objectives, and conducting studies, what we call consensus studies, and publishing reports, report statements, and awarding competitive research grants to scientists and research organizations, and publishing journals, periodicals, both for scientists and for the community at large, and organizing conferences, workshops, and symposia. These are some of the activities that we undertake at the Academy. The governance of the Academy is the General Assembly is the highest decision-making body, and it meets annually, and the board is elected by the General Assembly, and within the board we have an executive committee made up of the president and two vice presidents, one for the social science, humanities and arts, and one for the natural sciences. The Academy works with working groups. There are 5 working groups. There is one for agricultural sciences, there is one for humanities, social sciences, and the letters, and there is one for natural sciences, one for engineering, and one for medicine. So it is through the working groups that we undertake our consensus studies or our evidence-based advice to government and other sectors. So these are actually the 5 most important working groups. This is the structure we have, which shows the working groups and the standing committees. It is being organized actually as a young academy. We do not have all these units. For instance, the library and documentation unit has not been established. We are in the process of establishing it right now. I would like to bring this into discussion perhaps later on. So this looks the general structure of the academy. Now, the first thing that we did when we formally, when the academy was established, was to develop our strategic plan. So we have a strategic plan that has 5 core programs. And the first one is providing consensus building platforms on critical national issues. This is very important to us because we would like to make sure that important decisions in the nation are derived after thorough consideration of all components. So consensus building platforms is a very important activity that we feel we should do, and we are doing also right now. Increasing and strengthening the visibility and relevance of the academy is one other core program, and promoting science and technology and innovation through our conferences, and recognizing excellence and building institutional capacity and sustainability of the academy is the fifth core program that we have. The strategic plan was from 2011 to 2015, and currently we are undertaking a midterm review on the strategic plan to see how we have been faring in the last 2.5 years. The progress so far. So in the first 5-year program, we developed, as I said, the strategic plan, and we established and operationalized the 5 sectoral working groups, and we secured custodianship of a spacious compound, which used to be the headquarters, which is now the headquarters office. This building used to belong to Biotechnology Haile Selassie, who was the first foreign minister of Ethiopia. His house, found in the northern part of the country, is a very is the national heritage. As some of you may know, Biotechnology Haile Selassie was a very prolific writer who produced more than 30 seminal books, writings, and we say that not only the house, we also inherit the intellectual heritage of Biotechnology Haile Selassie also in being there. Now, we have a modestly equipped secretariat with an executive editor, and slowly the number of employees is rising to more than 20. We have been recognized by an act of parliament, and we have also obtained government submission, as I said, and meanwhile we have become members of different national and international groups. For instance, we are a member of the Network of African Science Academies, NASAC, and the Inter-Academy Panel, the international panel that supports and leads academies. We have the first task that we undertook was to study the status of the science and the research in the respective fields. So we said we need to first see the status of agricultural science and technology in Ethiopia, and also the status of engineering education and research in Ethiopia, etc. So the 5 working groups undertook a year-long study of the status of the sciences, which was then presented in the first science congress we had. That we consider is a baseline work on which other future studies are going to be based. We have conducted a few evidence-based policy advising workshops, as I will explain later on. And for instance, we undertook an expert review workshop on nutrition, nutrition and agricultural integration, and the integration of nutrition with agriculture and health, and also on the status of health research in Ethiopia, and one on the quality of primary education in Ethiopia. The first science congress that we held in December 2011 was held on a general theme, science and technology, survival of a nation. And its objective was to assess status of the science and technology in Ethiopia in general, and also increase the visibility of the academy. It was very well attended by policymakers and researchers, and as I said, that gave a very good baseline work to start from. We hosted the 9th annual meeting of the African Science Academies in November 2013. Although we are quite young, the African Science Academies initiative that is supported and led by the United States National Academy of Sciences chose to conduct its annual meeting in Addis by recognizing the effort that we have put in the last few years, and that was a big achievement for us. We also conducted public lectures to policy makers, and we conducted the African Academy workshop on climate change. This was in November, and also we hosted the General Assembly meeting of the Network of African Science Academies. So this came about as a result of the seriousness with which we have handled the academy affairs, and the fact that we could do these international workshops and conferences has brought, we believe, a little credibility to our activities. Now, a summary of the International Conference on Biotechnology for Africa. This is an important conference, as most of you know. Africa is not a beneficiary of the new developments in biotechnology. There were many agricultural revolutions in the past. For instance, there was the Green Revolution that changed life in the Far East, for instance, for India and China. The Green Revolution passed Africa because Africa was not prepared. Africa did not have the right infrastructure. Africa did not have the right capital to bring in seeds and fertilizers. So we were not beneficiaries of the Green Revolution. And the same thing is happening now because biotechnology appears to bypass Africa, and we suggest that there is a need for an Africa-wide conference on biotechnology, and we had 110 participants, and status of biotechnology research in Africa, and what inhibits African researchers to undertake biotechnology research was thoroughly discussed. And these discussions, actually we had one high-level policymaker from every country, and as a result, we passed some declarations and resolutions, and we also convinced our government about the importance of biotechnology, and as a result, the government has now started to revise its biosafety laws, which are, as they are, very inhibitory to research in biotechnology. So this is what we have been doing. Ongoing activities. One of the important activities that we are undertaking now is the establishment of a National Research Council in Ethiopia. National Research Councils are many countries have National Research Council. These lead and coordinate research in every country. Unfortunately, Ethiopia did not have a National Research Council, and as a result, researchers have suffered because there is no guidance, there is no priority setting, and government research support is not directed where it should be. The Academy worked on this, and now it is developing a document with which the country should establish a National Research Council, how it should be organized, how it should be, prioritize research, and how the support should go into where it should through a peer review process, etc. So this is a work that's coming to completion right now by the Academy. Another work that we are doing is conducting assessment of science and technology, human resource demand and supply in Ethiopia. The country does not seem to know exactly its human resources demand for science and technology for now and in the coming 10 years, and there is no thorough assessment of the human resources capacity, and the Academy has undertaken this actually through the request of the Ethiopian Science and Technology Ministry, and this is now underway. We are in the process of establishing an Ethiopian panel on climate change. As you know, the International Panel on Climate Change uses information and data obtained from developed countries, and Africa in general and Ethiopia in particular. There is not much information in the IPCC assessment reports that can be used for national policy making. So we said Ethiopia should have its own panel for climate change, and we obtained some funds to establish an Ethiopian panel for climate change that should do periodic assessments of the state of the environment, the mitigation and adaptation steps that need to be taken, that are being taken, and also the science. And this institution is now being established under our auspices. We are hosting it. We are also renovating the historic building of Biotechnology Haile Selassie. As you can see here, the big building with also a large area, and we have developed also a plan to renovate and use the Biotechnology Haile Selassie's area without losing the original quality of the building. Our priority areas. One of the first priority areas that we have is establishing an Ethiopian Academy of Sciences Science Center. As you know, every major city has science centers where children, adults, and even the youth are inspired by science, where a passion for science can come from. We do not have science centers in our part of the world, and we said there is no way to bring a culture of science, there is no way to increase a passion for science without having places where children can go and adults can go and learn and get interested in science. So our objective is to establish a science center within the premise of the academy, and to bring in the different components of the different sciences in a very interactive manner, with science talks and science demonstrations, and also with programs, summer programs for talented youth, where they meet role models, etc., and also with competition. So our major priority in the next few years is establishing a working science center at the premise of the Ethiopian Academy of Sciences. We'd also like to have a creative and cultural arts center within the academy. Actually, we would like to use Biotechnology Haile Selassie's old house as this center, where we will have exhibitions, art and photographic exhibitions, lectures on literature, the artists, philosophy, and cultural renewal. We would like to have in this house poetry recital, book reading and storytelling sessions, book fairs, etc. So establishing a cultural and creative arts center in the academy is another big objective that we have. The academy has also a desire to establish an AS academic press, and its goal is to create a nation of readers and to create an informed and enlightened population. And the objective is to increase scientific and scholarly publications. We would like to produce textbooks, references, academic journals, and ancient and rare Ethiopian books, also non-fiction. What are our other plans? We would like to establish an Ethiopian Young Academy of Sciences. As you know, Ethiopia is a country, a young country, where 60% of the population is less than 30. So we would like to mobilize young academies that would help us also mobilize the youth. And we would like to work also through the Ethiopian Young Academy of Sciences on the issue of the quality of science education. The issue of the quality of education is very critical to us. The current quality of education in our country leaves much to be desired, and we would like to work intensively on the quality of education, and we would like to mobilize the Young Academy of Sciences on this. We want to organize the second AS Science Congress in 2015, and its major theme is going to be harnessing science, technology, and innovation for development. And this Science Congress is going to have several panels and symposia. For instance, the two symposia that we're sure that we want to have is the organizational and management challenges of higher education and research in Ethiopia. That is de-bureaucratization of research, which is a very big problem in our country. So the entire higher education and research landscape in our country needs to be reworked. So we would like to see what's wrong with the governance and organization of higher education in Ethiopia, and why is it not fostering research as it should? Where are the problems? So we'd like to study the organization, management, and government of higher education in a symposium. The other, for instance, important symposium that we would like to have is on overlooked centers of scholarship, that is revisiting Ethiopia's traditional schools and lessons for modern education. We believe that our traditional schools have a lot to offer to modern education. As you know, the Kene tradition that is hundreds of years old, this scholarship tradition is not given the attention that it should. We believe that in Kene, students are forced to be innovative and creative every day, because every day they have to reinterpret the texts of the Bible using everyday phenomena, and bringing this innovative, creative nature from our traditional schools, and to see how what can be transferred to modern education is an important component. So overlooked centers of scholarship and revisiting Ethiopia's international traditional schools and lessons for modern education is an important panel. I'm sure some of you might join. We have several publications. I will not tire you with the list of the publications, about 14 publications, some of them in Amharic. The last one that you see here, Biotechnology, this is a book that we produced in Amharic, which is a result of a public lecture that went for something like 10 months. Every month we had a topic on biotechnology as a public lecture, which was conducted at the Ethiopian National Theatre, where 400 people attended, and we collected these public lectures in the form of a book. This has been distributed widely throughout the country, and we believe that this has increased the impetus for changing the biotechnology landscape in the country. These are some of the books that we have produced. We would like to, we have a desire to create partnerships everywhere for our fellowships and for some of the activities that we have, for collaborative projects. And we also invite scholars to participate in the second Science Congress by organizing panels and symposia. We seek special support for creating the AS Science Center and for the Cultural and Creative Arts Center. Finally, our logo. Has three components. You see here, first the green here, the intense green represents the environment, our desire for environmental sustainability in the country. We work toward this environmental sustainability. The spreading circles that you see represent the spreading of ideas, the ideas of science. That is what's critical to us. And also the growing rectangles that you see is our commitment to building the nation. This is our motto, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fetene. It was fascinating what you're doing, and really laudable and praiseworthy. Dr. Fetene, I wanted to ask you, what was the reason of putting the social sciences and humanities together with the hard sciences under the roof of one academy?
Very good. Yes. Yeah. The question is, our academy is an Ethiopian Academy of Sciences, which brings together the hard sciences, engineering, the technology, medicine, together with the humanities and social sciences and letters. So why is this so? we believe that knowledge develops in unison, and we would like to have this academy to house all of these. And for any study that we undertake, there is always an important component in the humanities and social sciences. And unless we bring them in an umbrella, I mean, the discussions we are going to have are always going to suffer. So there is a discussion about development, for instance. People think about some scientific components, always forgetting about those issues that are informed from the social sciences and humanities. And by bringing scholars together, then we believe the academy benefits, because there is so much cross-cutting issues in many of the studies that we undertake. And if we support scholarship should be in all the fields of knowledge. That's the main basis. Thank you for the question, a great question indeed.
Does the academy believe that the family planning or labor phase is a problem for the economic growth as well as the development of the nation? If so, what are the plans or programs that the academy has intended to do or is doing now?
Very good. For the academy to, for me to say the position of the academy, it has to be based on a study, a consensus study that is endorsed, and from which, I mean, on which is based on evidence gathered by the academy. So I cannot state the position of the academy, but it's general knowledge that family planning is very critical for the development of the nation, and that the academy also should support such efforts. But as a position of the academy, as I said, it has to be based on a consensus study from evidence gathered in the field and endorsed by the General Assembly or the board. So I'm sure you understand me. Thank you.
Follow up with Mary Jane's question. What's the relationship of the Academy with the Institute of Ethiopian Studies, the longer established humanities and social science organization in the country? Is a subdivision now of the Academy, or what relationship have you developed there?
The question was, what is the relationship of the Ethiopian Academy of Sciences with the Institute of Ethiopian Studies, whether they work together? I believe that's the question, is it? Yes, very good. We do not have institutional membership yet, but we believe that most of us believe that the Institute of Ethiopian Studies is one of the most important and critical institutions that we have in the country. And many of our fellows are work and have worked as directors of the Institute of Ethiopian Studies, currently work on the Institute of Ethiopian Studies. So that Institute of Ethiopian Studies is the heritage center for the scholarship of our country. So we have to work together with the institute. We have to support the institute, and we do so by having joint programs perhaps in the future. But currently we do not have institutional memberships, and we cannot talk of that. But we work together.
Thank you. The Ethiopian Science and Technology Commission, correctly being the first commissioner in Denmark, had some of the things, and the commission was working like this. Now, I don't know how it has changed. It was during the very time, and then now it's still the Ethiopian Technology Science.
Thank you. The first question was about the Ethiopian Institute, no, the Ethiopian Science and Technology Commission. The Ethiopian Science and Technology Commission was advising the government, was also granting, offering grants for research, which are things that we state that we will be doing, and in what way would it be different, was the first question, wasn't it? Very good. Yes, the Science and Technology, the Ethiopian Science and Technology Commission was a government body. So it was an agency of the government. So it was not independent of government. It would do what the government decides it to do, and it grants government budget. The Ethiopian Academy of Sciences is an independent body. So it can be critical of the government if it has evidence that some of the activities that the government is doing is not beneficiary to the nation. So our difference is in the independence. We are not a research granting institute. Our role is to support the growth of science and technology in the country, to enhance the growth of culture of science in the country, and also to advise government, to offer evidence-based advice to government. So our major difference is in our independence. Your second question is also related to this. We would like to establish a science center. We would like to assess the science and technology, human resource capacity. These are things that universities are doing, and how are we different was your second question, I suppose. Yes. Our objective, as I said, is bringing a culture of science, enhancing a culture of science in this country. And we study where we can make a big difference. For instance, in the country now, there is no single science center, science museum where the youth, adults, children go to be inspired by science, to have a passion for science. So we would like to establish one, have it run for some time, see its impact, and convince the government to have big science centers in every major towns in the country. So where we find out where the gap is, and we work on that. You see, our major objective is to have evidence-based opinion that is a result of consensus studies on major national issues. So there is, for instance, the issue of the 70-30 ratio for science and social science and humanities in about students going to universities. So we are trying to assess the current state of science and humanities and technology supply, human resources supply, and what it would be like in the next 5 to 10 years based on the current economic development. So by doing so, we would like to advise the government in its planning of the human resources and its planning of the universities and technical vocational schools. So we would like to advise the government in its planning. Sometimes these come as a result of requests by the government. Sometimes we also take our own initiative and undertake a study and then give a recommendation. We can't force our recommendation on government bodies, but we offer it. Since it's evidence-based advice, we hope governments take it, but they are not forced it. For instance, the document that we are going to produce on the establishment, organization, modus operandi of National Research Council is, we believe, will guide the establishment of a National Research Council in Ethiopia. But we are not certain that they will take whatever we suggest. But as a science academy, we cannot simply sit down and see when the government creates a national research council which is going to affect every researcher in the country. So I would like to say in the first place how best it should be organized and how best it should be directed. So we are fulfilling our obligation. So to conclude, our difference with most of these institutions, government institutions, is our independence from government, and that the advice we get, we believe, is evidence-based. Thank you.
Like in the academic constitution, there's room for creating regional Academy of Sciences, like one in the south, one in the north. And the second question is, this being the premise being the house of Black and Geta, is there a room, is there a corner where you really are showing a piece of his history, his books and everything in the Secretariat?
Very good. Yes, there is. I will start from the second question. Yes, the Biotechnology house is a very big house, and one of the rooms is going to be dedicated for his memorabilia, for his books. We have, we know people who have the original, the first prints, and some of them have promised us also to give us those books. So there's going to be a room dedicated for the work of Biotechnology and the memorabilia he has. That's a great idea we have thought of from the very beginning. About having a branch academy in the south, in the north, I'm not sure whether that may be an idea that we'll pick up. Perhaps we will have, for instance, youth science forums in every region. We have tried to, before we started the establishment of Ethiopian Academy of Sciences, we started by establishing a science youth forum. So we will have branches of the science youth forum in every region that should help us get people involved in the sciences, raising the awareness of people in the sciences, etc. So there are things that we'll be following up, but whether we will have a branch of the academy that will be based geographically, I'm not so sure, but perhaps on the youth side we might.
I just wanted to follow up on an earlier question that was raised here. Now, how is the academy funded? And is there government funding? And if there is government funding, how independent are you from the government?
Very good. The academy is, the funds for the academy come from different directions. In the first 2-3 years, we were funded by the Royal Society of London. We were also funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation through the United States National Academy of Sciences. UNESCO gave us support. In the last 2 years, we worked hard on the government and showed them the examples of the United States National Academy of Sciences and the United States, the Royal Society of London. You know, all the most important academies in the world are supported by the government through a grant in aid. They don't get budgets from the government, but a grant in aid. They give them some amount of money, which they are entitled to spend as they wish. So they were convinced about this. So they gave us last year some money, and they gave us also some money for the next fiscal year. So we get a grant in aid, just like Congress gives a grant in aid for the United States National Academy of Sciences, and the Parliament in London gives a grant in aid. But we are independent. I mean, we do not trade our independence for any support from the government. That would defy our raison d'etre, you know. That's right. So we guard our independence selfishly, actually.
Yes. I want to commend the Ethiopian scientists for this magnificent structure to build, and they're building this national Ethiopian Academy of Sciences. In 1994, I met Dr. Kuku, who is Nigerian, who was president of the African Academy of Sciences. So you mentioned some National Academy of Sciences, African National Academy of Sciences, I tell you some of your meetings. How about this? What's the current state of the African Academy of Sciences?
Very good. The question is the African Academy of Sciences. There is an African Academy of Sciences, and our friend has met the president of, a former president of the African Academy of Sciences. He's asking what the state of the African Academy of Sciences now and our relations with them. The African Academy of Sciences is a Pan-African academy. The Ethiopian Academy of Sciences is a national academy. And there is a third one. There is the network of African Science Academies, which is a network. So the African Academy of Sciences takes its fellowship from the entire continent. And it's an institution that is doing very well, which runs its programs in collaboration with individual national academies. For instance, this year we had a program, a joint program with the African Academy of Sciences on the state of scientific equipment in Africa. As you know, most equipment that we bring into our nations in Africa are not functional upon arrival. There is no systematic system to get them running. So this is money that's bought by, I mean, through a lot of funds, but we do not have a system to use equipment. There is no also a training program for bioengineers to maintain these. So we wanted to convince African governments to work on the equipment procurement, maintenance, and use. And we had this joint meeting with African Academy of Sciences. Actually, 3 countries, Ghana, Kenya, and Ethiopia, undertook this study. And now the study was supported by the International Foundation for Science, and the study has been submitted to the different governments, which is very, very important. So the African Academy of Sciences is an independent, continent-wide Pan-African academy, but it runs programs in collaboration with different national academies, and we have an excellent relationship with the academy, I mean, the Ethiopian Academy of Sciences. Oh, it has a big building in Nairobi. Actually, President Obasanjo gave $5 million to the African Academy of Sciences, and they built an excellent premise in Nairobi, and they are based in Nairobi. It's a thriving center, actually.
I guess we have to stop here, and thank you, Professor Masresha, for
Thank you very much.
the presentation, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.